On July 26th, 16-year-old Susana Morales left her home, texting her sister to say she was on her way back. But as the minutes turned to hours, Susana never walked through the door. Her phone went silent. Her footsteps vanished into thin air. Days passed, then weeks, with no sign of the teenager. But when her body was discovered in a chilling, unexpected location, the community was left in shock. Who could have taken her? What happened in those final moments? And more disturbingly, was someone still out there, lurking in the shadows? Susana Morales was in high school and liked hanging out with her friends, as most teens do. In the evening of her abduction, she had been at the Sterling Glen apartment complex to see friends. Morales went on her walk home after an evening of socializing. It was supposed to be a normal trip, but it would be her last. When she didn't come home that night, her family became worried and quickly put in a missing person report. Hopes that she would come back safely started to fade as the hours turned into days and the days into months. It quickly became a race against time to find out what happened to Morales. Her family, friends, and the police worked hard to find her and used all the resources they had, including the Life 360 app, which tracked her last moments. Even with all of these efforts, no one knew where she was for months, leaving the town in fear and uncertainty. A few months later, Morales' body was found in a rural area along Highway 316. This was a terrible turn in the case. As more questions about her last moments and the person who killed her came to light, the case became more complicated. Susana Morales was a high school student from Norcross, Georgia, a small town in Gwinnett County. She was 16 years old. Friends and family who knew her said she was a loving, kind, and lively girl. She was very close to her family and had a close group of friends who liked how friendly she was. Morales was known for having a positive outlook on life and being able to make people feel better. She left an impact on everyone she met. She had strong bonds with all of her family members. Her mother and sister were especially close to her and helped with the search for her when she went missing. Susana was last seen with some of her best friends at the Sterling Glen apartment complex the night she went missing. This was a place they often met. As she was leaving, Esmeralda Castillo and her boyfriend Axel Zaragoza were the last people to see her. Afterward, they said she was carefree and happy that night, enjoying her time with them before she started her walk home. At the time, Susana and Axel had been dating for a few months. The night she disappeared, they talked on FaceTime several times and didn't say anything strange. Later, Axel spoke about Susana's caring nature, stressing that she had a special skill for making people feel loved and special. The night she disappeared. Over the course of the evening of July 26, 2022, Susana Morales left the Sterling Glen apartment building around 9 p.m. to get back home. Since it was less than 2 miles to her house, and she did this walk all the time, there was no reason to be worried at first. There was nothing strange about her trip when she started it. Later, surveillance video caught Morales walking down the street near the apartment building. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. Morales was going home through an area of the town she knew well, so she didn't think anything bad would happen. That night, she would be suddenly stopped in her walk. Within hours, Morales' absence became more of a worry. People in her family and circle of friends tried to call her, but were not answered. They waited, hoping she had stayed with friends or just lost track of time. But as the hours went by and she hadn't called, worry set in. Susana's mother, Maria Bran, got worried when she didn't come home and started calling Susana's friends right away to see where she was. Time went on, and the family's worry grew. By morning, it was clear that something very bad was going on. Esmeralda Castillo, Susana's best friend, also started talking to people they both knew to try to figure out where she was. Castillo said Susana had left the apartment building as planned, and there were no signs she was going somewhere else. Susana's family and friends were able to find her using the Life 360 app, which showed them that she was miles away from where she was meant to be, near Highway 316. This information made them even more worried because it suggested she had gotten lost and ended up far from where she was supposed to be. The Life 360 app showed a scary pattern, and her family was afraid the worst. Friends and family of Susana quickly spread the word about her disappearance and looked for any hints that could lead to her safe return. Still, no real leads came up. What had happened to Susana Morales was still a haunting question. People in a quiet suburban neighborhood were shocked when a smart young girl went missing. Their fears about her safety grew with each passing day. Even though the police searched the places where her phone last registered, they were unable to find any sign of her. Family and friends of Susana Morales worked hard for months after she went missing on July 26, 2022, to find out what happened. In that terrible evening, when she didn't come home, the Morales family was filled with fear and doubt. Both Susana's mother, Maria Bran, and her sister, Jasmine Perez, were very helpful in the search. They did everything they could to get Susana home safely, working together with the police and people in the area. It was very hard on the family's emotions as they kept calling the police, following every lead, and holding on to the hope that Susana might still be living. Family and friends used the Life 360 app to help with the search because it had some of the last information about where Susana was. The app showed that her phone was last seen near Highway 316, which is a very remote place, and not at all where she should have been. Even with this lead, weeks went by and months passed without any major progress. Police and volunteers searched the area around her to see if they could find any signs that would help them find her. Susana's mother spoke from the heart, praying for her daughter's safe return and asking everyone to help with the search. Everyone was feeling a lot of stress during the long time of uncertainty. The detectives who were working on the case also had feelings about it. Lieutenant Xavier Biggers of the Gwinnett County Police Department became very involved in the case and spent a huge amount of time looking for every possible lead. Later, he broke down in court as he talked about how determined he was to bring Susana home. This showed how close he had become to the family during the investigation. Even with all of these hard work, there wasn't any real progress for 7 long months. The family was in a painful state of limbo because they didn't know what to do. As each day went by without any new information, their fear and worry grew. Finding her remains. The study took a terrible turn on February 6, 2023. A person walking near Highway 316 in Dacula, Georgia, found bones in the woods off to the side of the road in a rural area. The place was in the middle of nowhere, about 20 miles from the Sterling Glen apartment complex where Susana was last seen. It would have been perfect for someone trying to hide a body. The remains were quickly identified as those of Susana Morales, putting an end to the sad, months-long search. It hurt her family and the people who had come together to help them during the search when she was found. As soon as police arrived at the scene, they started collecting evidence to try to figure out how her body got there and what happened in her last moments. Now, it was up to the police to figure out what happened to Susana in the hours after she went missing. Investigators had been thinking for months that there was foul play, and now they knew for sure. At the scene, police also found important clues that linked the bodies to the bigger probe. Along with Susana's body, police found clues that pointed to a possible weapon being used. This made it even more difficult to figure out how she got to such a remote place and who killed her. As the investigation into Susana Morales' death and missing went on, the police were determined to learn who did this terrible crime. At first, there weren't any clear suspects, so police followed a lot of different leads. But things started to turn around when cops started putting together important pieces of evidence that led them to suspect Miles Bryant, a police officer from Doraville who lived close to where Morales went missing. The Life 360 app, which Morales' family had used to watch her last movements, was one of the most important pieces of evidence that made people suspicious. The app showed that Morales' phone had been close to Bryant's apartment complex before it finally went off miles away, near the woods area where her body was found months later. This information put Bryant near important places connected to Morales' disappearance, which made detectives more suspicious. Bryant's strange behavior. Even more than the position information, Bryant's actions in the days after Morales went missing raised red flags. Bryant said that his personal gun, a Glock 19, had been stolen just one day after Morales went missing. At first look, this may not have seemed to have anything to do with the stolen gun report, but investigators thought Bryant's actions around it were odd. He said that his gun had been stolen from his open car, but he didn't seem very interested in looking into what happened. Detectives were confused by his lack of worry for getting a weapon and the fact that he was close to where Morales went missing. The testimony of Avion Smyer, Bryant's ex-girlfriend, raised even more questions. During the hearing, Smyer said that Bryant had been acting strangely around the time that Morales went missing. She said that Bryant ignored her the night Morales went missing, and later she saw scratches on his truck and a broken mirror, which detectives thought might have been connected to a fight involving Morales. Smyer's evidence showed that Bryant's behavior wasn't consistent and gave investigators more reason to focus on him as a suspect. As the police probe went on, they found out that Bryant had met Morales and her friends before. Witnesses said Bryant offered Morales and her friend a ride home another time, but they turned him down. This past interaction with Morales, along with more and more circumstantial proof, made the case against Bryant stronger. In early 2023, after months of looking into the case, Miles Bryant was finally arrested on charges linked to the death of Susana Morales. At first, Bryant was charged with hiding Morales' death and wrongly reporting a crime because of his suspicious report of a gun theft. But as more proof came in, the charges were increased to include murder and theft. The fact that he was close to the crime scene, acted in a suspicious way, and there was strong proof of his movements during the time that Morales went missing, helped build the case against him. Bryant was fired from his job as a police officer in Doraville as soon as he was arrested. People were shocked when they learned that a police officer they trusted was involved in such a horrible crime. Bryant, who had sworn to serve and protect, was now being blamed for one of the worst things to happen in the area in recent years. Miles Bryant, a retired police officer in Doraville, was charged with kidnapping and killing Susana Morales, who was 16 years old. His trial began in June 2024. Months of research and emotional statements from Morales' family, friends, and law enforcement officers led to this trial. Everyone was working to get Morales justice. At the start of the trial, Bryant's actions in the days after Morales went missing and the evidence that finally linked him to the crime were looked at very closely. One of the most moving parts was when Morales' family, especially her mother, Maria Bran, talked about how painful it was to lose her daughter and how unclear it was for months before her body was found. Her statement set the tone for the trial. She told heartbreaking details about how her family searched for Susana and eventually realized she would never come home. Jasmine Perez, Morales' sister, also talked about how they used the Life 360 app to find Morales' phone and find out where it was the last time it was heard. Avion Smyer, Bryant's ex-girlfriend, also testified against him and gave damaging information that made the case against him even stronger. She remembered how strange he was acting around the time Morales went missing. She remembered the scratches on his truck and how he kept giving different reasons. In Smyer's testimony, she talked about their personal connection, which made Bryant's behavior and character even more complicated. During the trial, several police detectives gave their testimony. Gwinnett County Police Lieutenant Xavier Biggers, who led the probe, had an especially moving moment. Biggers broke down in tears on the stand as he talked about how hard he worked to find Morales and how the case made him feel. Other officers also gave very important testimony about how they collected evidence and talked to Bryant during the probe. The prosecution showed a lot of proof that Bryant was connected to Morales' death and abduction. One important piece was information from the Life 360 app that showed Bryant was close to where Morales' body was found. This information shows that Bryant was in the area at a very important time, which contradicts his claim that he had nothing to do with her death. A big part of the trial was also Bryant's supposedly stolen gun. It seemed odd to the police that Bryant reported his gun stolen only one day after Morales went missing. Bryant also didn't seem very interested in continuing the investigation into the alleged theft, which made people even less sure of his trustworthiness. The gun going missing and Bryant's contradictory statements about it made it seem like someone was trying to hide the fact that he was involved in a major crime. There was also forensic evidence from the scene where Morales' body was found and testimony from people who had seen him near Morales' last known position. According to the prosecutor, all of these things pointed to Bryant as the person who killed Morales. In June 2024, after several days of discussion, the jury came to a decision. Miles Bryant was guilty of several serious charges. He was found guilty of murder with intent, illegal murder, kidnapping, and lying about a crime. The verdicts showed that the jury thought Bryant had not only killed Morales, but also tried to hide the crime by telling police that his gun had been stolen when it wasn't. Bryant was found not guilty of attempted rape, though, because the prosecution could not show it beyond a reasonable doubt. Bryant was given a life sentence without the chance of release. This was the end of a case that had a big impact on the Morales family and the community. A family that had lost a beloved daughter and sister felt a deep sense of loss after the trial. It put an end to months of grief and doubt. Susana Morales' tragic death is a powerful warning of how easily people can be hurt, even in places that seem safe. The community was shocked when they learned that Miles Bryant, a trusted police officer, was guilty for her death. Bryant, who was sworn to protect, broke that trust in the worst way possible, leaving Morales' family and the community as a whole with a scar that will never go away. People who used to trust that public workers would keep them safe felt betrayed, which made the tragedy even worse. As we remember Susana Morales, it is important to bring attention to the risks of violence against women and the need to hold powerful people responsible. People should take action after hearing her story to make sure that similar violence doesn't happen to anyone else. To honor Susana's memory, let's push for better protections for people who are weak and make sure that people who are responsible for public safety are held to the highest standards of ethics. We can help make sure that something like this doesn't happen again by doing this.